7th to 9th, mainland China's college entrance exam, also known as the Gaokao, took place. Let's take a look at how the students who have been under pressure for years rushed out of the exam halls. In the first video, the student who rushed out of the exam hall slipped and fell to the ground. A netizen commented, "The first person to run out of the exam hall every year could become a celebrity. Just live streaming the run is enough, and today we've got an extra twist." Following this, students continued rushing out of the exam hall. Some slipped and fell, while others collided and stumbled. One female student fell after exiting the hall, amusing the netizens, calling it a large-scale social death. There were also students showing off their acrobatic skills, flipping and tumbling as they rushed out of the exam hall. Some students walked out with a dazed look, not knowing where they were. Why are students so emotional? For most ordinary children in China, from primary school to high school graduation, they compete and struggle in an extremely harsh environment. On June 7th, at an exam center in Zhoucheng, Shandong, a male student in white clothes suddenly broke down, tore up his exam paper, threw it on the ground, and then grabbed the paper from a student behind him, tearing that one up as well. Then he rushed out of his seat, grabbed another student's exam papers, and tore them to shreds. The exam hall was immediately in chaos, and the proctor hurried out to seek help, pulling the student out of the exam hall. Netizens commented, "This student broke down just before the finish line. Tearing up the exam paper in the exam hall means his life is ruined. Chinese students are so pitiful. From a young age, they're taught to have a place in society. They must get into a prestigious university and become top talents. They lose the normal joys of childhood and the care of their parents, as the purpose of learning is no longer to gain knowledge, but to bear the expectations of their entire families. Learning and exams have become the only content of mainland Chinese students' lives for the past decade, and the Gaokao has become the ultimate goal of their efforts and struggles. So when they rush out of the exam hall, they feel that all their burdens are finally lifted. They believe that after 10 years of hard study, the most grueling days of their lives are over. If they get into university, their future will be secure." However, these naive students may not realize that as China faces a comprehensive economic downturn and deflationary spiral, the job prospects for college graduates are entering an unprecedented slump. They will soon face industry involution, difficulty in finding jobs, devaluation of degrees, and knowledge becoming useless. The Gaokao will not change their fate. The more knowledge they have, the poorer they may become. China's economy is stuck in a deadlock, and their suffering has only just begun. According to public data, in 2025, the number of graduates from China's regular universities is expected to reach 12.2 million, an increase of 430,000 from the previous year, setting a new historical high. The employment pressure on graduates is unprecedented, and employment issues are set to become a major challenge for the Chinese government. According to a report released by Julian Recruitment, the employment rate for the 11.8 million university graduates in 2024 was only 55%, meaning nearly half of university graduates were unemployed. This is likely to raise the unemployment rate for the 2025 graduating class, exacerbating the competition for jobs and worsening the employment situation. According to a report from NetEase, recently a netizen posted that the employment rate for 2025 master's graduates from a university in Sichuan was just over a quarter, and all PhD graduates failed to find jobs. None of them could get hired. The post showed that on November 28, 2024, a teacher from a university in Sichuan in a group chat said, "This is the employment statistics for the 2025 master's graduates. You can refer to it. Last year at the same time, master's students had an employment rate of 51.5%, but this year it's only 27%, half of what it was last year. PhD graduates have an employment rate of 0%. Those who still haven't secured a job should hurry up, and while working hard to graduate, also send out more resumes. The pressure to find a job after graduating is very high." The teacher also reminded students to secure a job offer before graduation. She said, "If you wait until graduation to find a job, you'll be competing with thousands of people in society. Hang in there." A netizen commented, "Don't think this is just an isolated phenomenon at certain universities. The difficulty for university graduates to find jobs and the devaluation of degrees are widespread now. The higher the degree, the harder it is to find a job." A netizen from Shanxi posted, "My wife graduated with a PhD in chemical engineering this year. She's 33 years old and has been unable to find a suitable job. She started looking for work before graduation, and even now, after graduating, she hasn't found anything. She sends out resumes, but they're like stones sinking into the ocean, with no response." Netizens flooded the comment section with responses. Look at North Korea or Cuba. After Latin Americanization, PhDs are now in the same position as migrant workers. Suggestions for PhDs to find jobs: bricklayer, carpenter, steelworker, concrete worker, caregiver, security guard, cleaner, landscaper, courier, etc. These are revolutionary jobs, building socialism. Very honorable. In 2022, Wang Minzhen, a former nuclear physics PhD from Peking University, took a job as a street management worker in Beijing's Chaoyang district. A master's graduate from the University of Manchester also ended up working in a similar position in Beijing's urban management. Two other master's graduates from the China Foreign Affairs University and the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences also became street management staff. These cases caused a stir at the time and trended on social media, with many expressing shock and lamenting the devaluation of degrees. As the economy continues to stagnate, the devaluation of degrees has reached a new level. In January 2025, Tong Jie-chung, a master's graduate in civil engineering from Tsinghua University, spent 6,000 yuan to enroll in a cooking course at Langxiang Vocational School, sparking heated discussions among netizens. Tong Jie-chung explained that this was a carefully considered decision for her long-term future. Netizens commented that this situation reflects the awakening of young people facing economic decline. They said that the challenges faced by talents like Tong Jie-chung are not isolated cases. The Yao class at Tsinghua University, known as China's top selective class for the computer science industry, has cultivated tech giants and AI experts. The phrase, half of China's talent comes from Tsinghua and half of Tsinghua's talent comes from Yao class, reflects its elite status. In the past, even the lowest-ranked Yao class graduates could earn a starting salary of $1 million US. Now, graduates from this program are taking on outsourced positions. A private auto parts factory in Harbin is even asking for PhDs to apply for regular factory work, with a monthly salary of 3,500 yuan. A netizen commented, China is experiencing severe degree devaluation. While inherent factors like high expectations, low skills, and poor industry adaptability among university graduates contribute to this, the rapid devaluation of degrees is closely tied to the economic downturn, which has shrunk the job market. This has also expanded the graduate school market. The Chinese government's commercialization and industrialization of education have led to an aggressive promotion of graduate studies, encouraging students to delay entering the workforce while exhausting their families' resources. As a result, the true unemployment rate for graduates, masked by continued graduate school applications, remains hidden. No one understands the devaluation of education more than I do. The value of degrees today is even worse than you can imagine. PhDs are almost as cheap as cabbage now. I graduated from Tongji University, which used to be highly respected. Back then, many students said, I'd rather go to Tongji for architecture than go to Tsinghua or Peking University. But now looking at it, Tongji's admission score is already the lowest among the 985 universities. I thought I was already doing badly, but now I realize that my friends who pursued graduate studies are in an even worse situation. She mentioned that in 2024, the number of master's and doctoral programs increased significantly. Nationwide, 831 new doctoral degree awarding institutions and 1,924 new master's degree awarding institutions were added, totaling 2,755 new programs, a 15% increase from the previous year. Looking at this number alone, one might not feel much, but over the past decade, China's graduate school enrollment has more than doubled. In 2014, there were around 620,000 graduate students, but now that number has reached 1.3 million. The question arises, why are universities so eager to establish these master's and doctoral degree programs? The answer is quite practical: money. With degree programs, universities can apply for national-level projects and receive funding. Universities are very ambitious. They work hard to upgrade their status. There used to be a clear regulation that universities had to proportionately assign faculty with advanced degrees to match their degree programs. For instance, if you want to offer a master's degree, 25% of your faculty should hold a PhD. If you want to offer a doctoral degree, 45% of the faculty must have a PhD. So, where do universities find so many PhDs and master's faculty members? They import them from abroad. For example, a certain university in Hunan brought in 23 PhDs from the Philippines all at once, and it's quite a coincidence that these PhDs all graduated from Adamson's University in the Philippines, and they're all philosophy PhDs. What a coincidence that they all went there to get their PhDs hand in hand. This school was even included on a list called the Strengthened Credential and Degree Verification List, which is essentially a blacklist. These cases are outrageous, but the most ridiculous part is that the universities spent over 18 million yuan to bring these PhDs in, and the wholesale price wasn't cheap. The blogger explained that besides the Philippines, South Korea also has an entire PhD production line specifically for China. In just 12 days, you can complete a semester of a PhD program. Don't even ask what they study there. After a series of operations, a strange cycle emerges. She said, to upgrade, universities bring in a bunch of fake degrees from abroad. They successfully upgrade, then recruit more PhD and master students. But after they graduate, they realize that the land is full of PhDs and master students, and the only people who benefit are those who brought in the fake degrees. This large group of newly graduated PhDs struggles to find a job. I'm not trying to cause anxiety, but this is what's really happening. PhDs have become low-income groups. If this continues, getting a PhD or a master's degree might become a luxury. Unless you're really passionate about academia, have money, and come from a wealthy background, this may not be the right path. Otherwise, why compete for academic degrees and end up poorer? According to data from China's National Bureau of Statistics, in 2024, 4.4 million people applied for graduate school. In 2023, 1.3 million students enrolled in graduate programs, with 3.9 million graduate students currently studying. At the 2024 fall semester opening ceremony of Tsinghua University, the school announced that it would admit 3,800 undergraduate students and 9,926 graduate students. Meanwhile, the University of Science and Technology of China will have over 2,000 undergraduates and nearly 10,000 graduate and doctoral students. The University of Chinese Academy of Sciences is set to enroll over 400 undergraduates and over 10,000 graduate students. Netizens argue that the design of admitting more graduate students than undergraduates is not aimed at upgrading higher education, but rather at covering up the severe unemployment situation among university graduates and shifting the responsibility for China's economic downturn. In an attempt to mask the economic decline, the Chinese government is manipulating data, creating an informational black hole. According to a report from Bloomberg, the recruiting platform Zhaopin has not published reports for 2 consecutive quarters. These reports usually track the average salaries of newly hired employees across 38 major cities nationwide. Typically, this platform releases such data within a month after each quarter ends. The delay in publication reflects China's increasingly stringent approach for disclosing statistical data in recent years, particularly in the employment sector. Independent indicators that could replace official data are becoming increasingly scarce, making it difficult for analysts and investors to grasp the sensitive reality: high youth unemployment, widespread salary cuts, and ongoing layoffs. Netizens point out that the ongoing unemployment crisis is affecting various industries, leading to a sharp rise in unemployed individuals. Many people with master's or doctoral degrees are struggling to find jobs, and some who previously had decent incomes have suddenly lost their jobs. Many of them don't want their families to know, while others cannot face their friends and family and pretend to go to work every day. Some businesses have seized this opportunity, leading to the rise of pretend-to-work companies, where many young people pay to occupy a desk, sparking heated discussions. Since the beginning of this year, cities such as Beijing, Shanghai, Hangzhou, Chongqing, and Guangdong have witnessed the emergence of these pretend-to-work companies. Operators say that with the growing number of unemployed people, many don't want their families to find out. For just 30 yuan a day, they can sit in a company and go through the motions of a 9-to-5 job, even receiving a so-called payroll slip at the end of the month. A netizen shared a video of her day spent pretending to go to work after being laid off. She arrived at the so-called company at 9:45 a.m., asked about the pricing, and ended up spending 30 yuan to sit at a desk. While making coffee in the break room, she encountered the company's CEO, who jokingly referred to as a rich boss. He had paid 60 yuan to sit in the president's office. The company even prepared afternoon tea for team-building purposes, but it was just for photos and couldn't be consumed. The netizen spent the morning in the so-called office, eating breakfast and browsing job listings online, and during breaks, she played with her phone. Observing her colleagues, she noticed that they all appeared to be deep in thought, and she wondered, "I'm not the only one without a job, am I?" At 12:15 p.m., while eating lunch at her desk, she saw one of her father's friends also working there. By 4 p.m., she posted a picture of herself working in the office and told her mother she would work overtime that day. By 5:30 p.m., many of her colleagues were still working overtime. It wasn't until nearly 8 p.m. that her colleagues began to leave the office, and half an hour later, she too finished work and went home. A blogger noted that these pretend-to-work companies are becoming increasingly common. Young people, afraid of being pressured by their parents about marriage or work, have no choice but to pretend to go to work every day. Additionally, with China's worsening economy and the increasing vacancy rate of business offices, many investors have resorted to turning large commercial spaces into shared office spaces, offering short-term desk rentals to meet individual needs and generate more business returns. A boss of a pretend-to-work company in Chengdu, Sichuan, explained in a video, "On the surface, we're a company, but in reality, we're an adult daycare center. Here, you can freely play with your phone, use the computer, and enjoy Wi-Fi, air conditioning, and a 9-to-5 schedule, all without needing to clock in." According to her, the company's owner even pretends to assign tasks to employees. Of course, at this point, you can refuse with any excuse, and you don't need to worry about being fired. You can experience the pleasure of throwing tasks back in the boss's face. A similar pretend-to-work company has appeared in Chongqing. An operator posted a video saying,
In Chongqing, we've prepared a place for those who want to pretend to work. It looks like a legitimate company, but in reality, it's just a space for you to spend your unemployment gap.
He further explained, the unemployment rate in Chongqing has been high recently. Many people, after losing their jobs, are afraid to tell their families, so we had the idea to open a pretend to work place. You can occupy a desk every day, sit next to a computer, and pretend to be working. If you want to experience being a boss, you can pay to work in the company office or the CEO's office. The pretend to work company concept has also spread to Guangdong.
Recently, a friend of mine opened a company in Dongguan called No Work Company. Now, his company has fully booked dozens of workstations, and they're all occupied. At this No Work Company, you can curse the boss, not work, sleep, read novels, watch videos, and do anything you want. You pay 30 yuan a day for a workstation, and you can start work at 10 a.m., finish at 5 p.m., or even at 3 p.m. This is called No Work Company. Did you ever think such a company could exist? I didn't, and it's real.
Information from China's company registration platform shows that similar pretend-to-work companies have been registered in cities such as Beijing, Changsha, Taiyuan, and Hangzhou. A video shows that the new Era building in Jing'an District, Shanghai, is full of young people who rent desks for just 9.9 yuan, pretending to work. The rise of pretend-to-work companies across various regions has sparked heated discussion. A netizen commented, "Isn't this just like an internet cafe? But instead of playing games, it's a place to form teams and chat. It's much better than an internet cafe." Another netizen remarked, "I think it's great. For just 9.9 yuan a day, the cost of utilities and internet at home is already higher. After staying at home for a while, it's nice to find a taste of office life, and you realize there are plenty of people who are in the same situation." And said, after the college entrance exams, the excited students may never imagine that even if they get into a prestigious university, they might still face the reality of being unemployed upon graduation. If they knew that even if they triumphed in the exams, tomorrow they may have no place to go, how would they feel? How would they understand this absurd world?
Thanks.
Donald Trump's administration is facing a full rebellion from the MAGA faithful, the most diehard, the people that spend all day online talking about Donald Trump.
Yep.
Some of the president's most strident supporters are furious at his Department of Justice after concluded there would be no further disclosures of Jeffrey Epstein-related documents, and that, basically, everyone should just drop it and move on.
Yep.
This comes after his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, basically spent months hyping some sort of big reveal from the Department of Justice. Epstein, of course, the disgraced New York financier who died in federal custody back in 2019 while facing child sex trafficking charges related to what prosecutor says what a years-long.
I wish he would have known that he would have, like, apparently he didn't have a list. He didn't do anything wrong because maybe he wouldn't have killed himself. That's sad. Yeah, did he know that there weren't going to be any charges?
Scheme to abuse young women. A new memo from the DOJ reiterates the department's position that Epstein was not murdered, noting, quote, after a thorough investigation, FBI investigators concluded that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide in his cell. They even released nearly 11 hours of security camera footage from outside Epstein's cell that night of his death. Although that
10 hours and 59 minutes, apparently.
Likely do little to quell the ongoing conspiracies, especially considering the video is missing an entire minute.
Yeah.
The DOJ attributes that to a long-standing glitch with the system.
Which, by the way, I believe that, but I just don't believe anything else.
Despite all the Epstein didn't kill himself memes and the never-ending, increasingly Baroque conspiracies, the MAGA faithful are really mad about this part of the memo. Quoting it here. This systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. There was no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Now, that claim that there was no shadowy client list, ostensibly containing evidence that Epstein was secretly blackmailing political and financial and Hollywood elites, certainly seemed to contradict what Trump's own Attorney General said on television back in February.
Play it.
One of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that.
Pretty. I mean, it seems like she just said it, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but like, I feel like she kind of just went and said it.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. She did just say that, right? We just heard her correctly.
Where'd it go?
Now her Department of Justice says no such list exists. But again, this wasn't just Pam Bondi misspeaking or speaking ambiguously.
They said it like 3 times.
I mean, seriously, 4 months. This has been a drumbeat. She's promised some sort of big revelation from the documents. I mean,
for a lot of people, this is one of the big things that they voted for Trump on. They voted for Trump because they thought that he would make this public.
Remember this? Back in February, the White House even held this big event with right-wing influencers sharing a bunch of what turned out to be previously reported in the public domain information. They had repackaged into a bunch of...
It's like, also, think about it, is like these right here, these guys right here, these are your fucking... These are your soldiers, right? And you just sent them out there with an AK-47 that shoots bubbles. They're going to look like retards. So now you basically you made them look stupid. You made them look stupid against tanks. Yeah, exactly. They are retards. Well, I mean, they thought, how are they retards? They approached this. They went into it in good faith, and they were lied to. They were lied to, manipulated, misled, and I think it's embarrassing. It is. It's absolutely embarrassing. They got played. They did.
Fancy binders, which they handed out to people.
So somebody goes real quick. Somebody goes, I don't see this as a big L at all. We were never getting lists of clients because that means they're all getting charged. Wait, so you think that the reason why it's not a big L is because too many pedophiles would be arrested? I think that makes it worse. That's just me. Yeah, like, there'd be so many of them. What would you do?
DOJ comes back basically yesterday and says, you know what? Looked at it and turns out nothing to see here.
Ah, geez.
Well, now that same right-wing media ecosystem is absolutely fuming.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing,
this tape
of course, shows he didn't kill himself. It's like a joke. But worse than that, it's a joke that we all get. Like, they're not fooling anybody. So I feel like we're at a dangerous point now.
So now, by coming in and being part of the cover-up, the Trump administration has become part of it. I mean, it's just, you cannot see it any other way.
Think about this. You made Alex Jones cry. That's fucked up. That's really fucked up, man. How could you do that?
So I just got to the office. I'm going to go throw up, actually. And this only happens every few years when something really, really bad happens or something. I mean, I'm
that's messed up, yeah.
Going to puke probably right now. My mouth is watering right now. Because I have integrity. And, I just really need the Trump administration to succeed and to save this country.
This guy's a national treasure. He put his faith in Donald, and Donald dropped the fucking ball. He fucked this up bad. Big time fuck up. Super fuck up. Mega fuck up. The biggest fuck up that we've had so far.
They're doing so much good. And then for them to do something like this tears my guts out.
Yep. You made.
Do you see what you've done, Pam Bondi?
Yes.
You have made Alex Jones cry and possibly puke, which he only does a few times a year because of how much integrity he has.
Yes.
In hindsight, though, I don't think that those people should be very surprised. As we have said before, repeatedly, this has been a consistent theme of our reporting here on this program. If you were a single-issue voter in 2024 and hating Jeffrey Epstein and people associated him was your only issue.
That's not true. They also hated minorities and women. What a simple way to look at it.
Donald Trump should not have been the candidate for you.
What, Kamala Harris should have been? Get the fuck out of here. She was VP for 4 years. Nothing happened.
Trump and Epstein were friends. Everyone has seen the photos and the party tapes at Mar-a-Lago where they seem to leer at women. And we remember when Trump famously told New York Magazine, "I've known Jeff for 15 years, terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side."
No doubt about it. Wow. Why would you say that? Who would say that? You shouldn't say that. It's the wrong thing to say.
One of the women at the center of the Epstein sex trafficking case, Virginia Giuffre, who recently died by suicide, claimed that she was actually recruited as a minor by Epstein's collaborator, Ghislaine Maxwell, at Mar-a-Lago. And when that collaborator was facing trial for sex trafficking, Donald Trump seemed oddly concerned about her.
Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, and so a lot of people want to know if she's going to turn in powerful people. And I know you've talked in the past about Prince Andrew, and you've criticized Bill Clinton's behavior. I'm wondering, do you feel that she's going to turn in powerful men? How do you see that working out?
I don't know. I haven't really been following it too much. I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach. But I wish her well.
I guess.
Whatever it is.
Her friend or boyfriend,
Epstein,
was either killed or committed suicide in jail. She's now in jail. Yeah, I wish her well. I'd wish you well. I'd wish a lot of people well. Good luck.
Oh, God.
Do you remember that? Remember that when Maxwell was being tried for sex trafficking and Donald Trump was asked about her and his first instinct was to be like, "I wish her well." Used to know her back in the day.
I think this is honestly, I just think it was a throwaway statement that he made. The same as he said the late, great Hannibal Lecter. Like, I honestly, like, as somebody who's listened to Trump talk a lot, I don't think that there's a greater meaning to this. It's just him talking. Just a stream of consciousness.
Beach saw her all the time. Now think back to the
late, great Hannibal Lecter.
Do you ever remember Donald Trump talking about Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, all the crazy nonsense he said about all kinds of insane internet sewer gutter stuff. I mean, and then there's the
I love how like this guy, he tries to go and make it out like the internet. You're reporting on people making, like, your entire media is based off of reporting what people do on the internet. All the clips you just posted were from the internet, besides one from Fox News. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like, yeah, it was like, it's not 1998 anymore, okay?
Case stuff and the Hannibal Lecter riffs you would do. He conveniently never brought this case up. And then when he was asked about it, Trump gave this truly remarkable answer.
Americans have lost a lot of trust in institutions, and I think there's been a lot of discussion, especially online and especially with young people. How do we rebuild that trust in institutions? The CIA, the FBI, all those institutions.
You're right.
Some people think that one way to build trust is to declassify things that everyone's talking about. I know you talked earlier about, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. So if you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these. Yeah. Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you know, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least...
Do you think that would restore trust? Help restore...
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others. Certainly about the way he died. It would be interesting to find out what happened there, because that was a weird situation, and the cameras didn't happen to be working, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, they were. I thought they just said
Epstein,
they were working.
I don't know so much. I mean, this became a huge...
Which, by the way, like, that comment in a vacuum isn't a bad thing. because he probably didn't know a lot about it. And like, yeah, maybe that's true, but it's just that it's maybe the right message from the wrong messenger. Like, yeah, because he's right. Like, yeah, you could post something and it could negatively affect people that weren't really involved. True. But like, I don't know, guys. It just seems kind of, yeah, sus. It's a little, people are reaching so hard. I mean, how many points on the graph do you need to make a line? Doesn't it seem like this is kind of weird that they were so gung-ho on this and then they just suddenly, like, about-faced 180 degrees changed their entire tone on this? Like, I mean, isn't that weird? But I mean, that should be weird, right? I mean, the thing is that you don't lose anything if you voted for Trump. This doesn't make you wrong. Like, it's not like Biden would have done any better. Or Kamala Harris would have done any better with this. They had 4 years to do this. They didn't do it. So you don't have, like, you don't need to defend some bullshit, right? But just be fucking honest, man. Just be honest. Like, I mean, this seems like a problem. It's weird, bro. Like, it's weird that this shit happened. Wake up, dumbass chatters coming in here saying some stupid shit. I think Trump's doing pretty good. This is insanity, though. Yeah. Like, I mean, I've been on board with 80, 90% of the Trump activities. But this is the 10 to 20. And I think that a lot of people need to be doing 10 to 20 because of it. That's actually not true. It should be more than that. We got to find out who's on the fucking list. You telling me it's what a bunch of bullshit.
Obsession of the kind of online MAGA right. I mean, really.
Let me see. Well, real quick, let me read this. Devil's advocate, what if they really did do an honest investigation and came up to not all that much? The administration fell for the same conspiracy theories they were talking about now? Then they deserve every amount of criticism that they get. And they deserve this amount of distrust. Because if you were gassing up a lie the entire time that you didn't even know it was true or not, then you know what? You get what you fucking deserve. You want to play with fire? Sometimes you get burned.
Epstein, I don't know so much. I mean, this became a huge obsession of the kind of online MAGA right. I mean, really, listen to how then podcaster Dan Bongino spoke about this earlier this year.
I love how mainstream media tries to always compartmentalize the internet as if they're not on the internet trying to upload all their videos and trying to get as many views as possible. It's just funny that they do that.
For joining the Trump DOJ.
This isn't about Epstein or 9/11 or JFK or RFK. It is, but it isn't. It's about a bigger thing. If you're lying about that, you're lying about everything. Who's on the Epstein tapes, folks? Who's on those tapes? Who's in those black books? Why have they been hiding it?
Good question, Dan Bongino. That was back in February. And here is Dan Bongino just 2 months later, now installed as Trump's second in command at the FBI.
You know a suicide when you see one.
You just look at, bro. You just look at him. You know that you see these two guys come in and you know that it's not going to happen. Whatever it is, like you're trying to apply for a house mortgage. These two guys come in. You didn't get approved. You try to get a credit check to buy a car. It just didn't meet the qualifications. Like, these guys come in, like, they're done.
And that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to get, I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
You've seen the whole file? Then where is it? Let me see it. Let me see the whole file then. Why can't you show people the whole file? Why can't you do it? It's not like there's kids involved. It's just him in a jail cell.
Kind of a different vibe. This idea that Donald Trump, of all people, was going to be the one to crack the Epstein case wide open was always a ludicrous notion, a weird bit of projection. And it seems like MAGA world has finally figured that out. And despite all the furor from his base, and it's
not that. See, like, he doesn't understand it. The reason why people were still on board with Trump doing it is because, like, this is really what I think that most people thought. They went with the lesser of two evils. They thought that, I bet a lot of people, how many of you guys voted for Trump? You probably thought he was on the list. Just real talk. Just tell me the truth. Just tell me the honest to God truth. How many of you guys voted for him, but you thought maybe he's on the list? Me? Yeah, everybody knows that, right? And so, like, the next best thing, like, because Kamala Harris wasn't going to release anybody. So the next best thing was for him to release everybody except him. As a pragmatic person, that tracks. It does. Like, I thought maybe. Yeah, exactly. Lesser of two evils. Yeah. You can't be serious? Every time that I say something like that and people say, you can't believe that, like, wow. I know how people think. I do. I know how people think. And trust me, it's a very tough burden to bear.
Sizable today. Trump is desperate to talk about anything else.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. Can you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the set?
Yeah, sure. If I
could I just interrupt for 1 second?
This is like, bro, again, I have never seen somebody sound more guilty than this. Like, he knows he fucked up. You know you fucked up.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
You know,
this guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question.
This is the message that I think everybody needs to make sure that they get. Yes, we do want you to waste the time. Yes, it does matter. We do need to know this. It is really important. And by the way, if it's not important and you don't care about it and it doesn't matter, then why not look into it? Yeah, I think this is going to hurt his third. This might hurt his third campaign run or his third term. It might even affect him into his fourth term, but we'll have to see.
On Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration.
What I hate the fact that they're right. I hate this shit. Should never happen. But he's right. They're right on this. They are. And I'm glad. This is the reason why it's good that we don't just have Fox. Like, as much as I shit on MSNBC, I think they're full of shit all the time. Every once in a while, it's good to see a little bit else. A little bit else is something different, right? Truly the most unbiased streamer. Well, I am biased, but I'm biased for the truth. I'm biased for the truth, and I'm biased for justice. Unless I disagree with it, then I'm biased for lies and no justice. But that's different.
I absolutely. We have gotten so many amazing AA and indie experiences so far. Claire Obscure Expedition 33, Schedule 1, Repo, Split Fiction, tons of great games that are not coming from the top 1% of companies in this industry. And we're actually finding out that almost half of this year's top performing Steam games have come from AA or indie studios, which I think is so cool to see. I am one of the people who is sick of seeing reboots and remakes and remasters from these large companies. I want new and unique content at least every once in a while, and they're not the ones delivering that to us. So it says, as bigger studios continue to cancel projects and lay off talented developers or see their trend-chasing games fail, smaller games have come to the limelight. Indie titles like Schedule 1, Repo, and Peak have all garnered massive audiences, while games from smaller studios like Clair Obscur Expedition 33 have achieved critical acclaim, breaking multiple records in the process. With player and development habits shifting, as 2025 reaches its halfway point, we've looked at the games with the highest player counts on Steam and have found that 40% of the top 20 are either indie or AA. Yeah, because the companies in the industry like the Obsidians and the BioWares are all creating slop. They are creating titles that are underwhelming for players at this point. And if you're not going to deliver us the best quality you possibly can, then we are going to look towards experiences that, yes, might not have the biggest budgets behind them, but at least are really fun and unique. Or in the case of Clair Obscur, that game was phenomenal in every single way. If you had told me that was a game made with a $500 million budget, I would have believed it. With the voice cast that they had gotten together, the visuals, how well polished it was, the scope of the game. If you had told me it was worth $500 million freaking dollars in total, I would have believed you. And it just goes to show that we do not need companies to put that much money into every single experience, because even when they're putting that much money into games, they're not half as good as games with a quarter of the freaking budget. So it says, according to this data pulled from SteamDB, 8 of this year's top 20 games sorted by peak concurrent player count have come from indie studios or can be classified as AA. And this is not good for the major companies in the industry, because they have thousands and thousands of people that they're laying off right now. They're canceling tons of projects that they've already put a lot of time and money into, and they need their next titles to be massive successes, but they are getting more and more competition, which I think is great. Competition is very healthy. If you have nobody you're competing against, you get too comfortable, and I think that that's what we've seen in this industry a lot recently. But here is the full list. We've got Monster Hunter Wilds, Schedule 1, Repo, Split Fiction, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Bongo Cat, Stellar Blade, Dune Awakening, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, Mecha Break, Peak, Fragpunk, Shadowverse Worlds Beyond, Rematch, Inzoi, Fantasy Life, Assassin's Creed Shadows, RuneScape, Dragon Wild, Sultan's Game, and Persona 5, The Phantom X. Now, there is also a really big difference in price tags here. You have titles like Fragpunk and Mecha Break that are free to play. You have games like Schedule 1s and Repos that are on the cheaper side. Peak is $8. And then you have Monster Hunter Wilds, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Assassin's Creed Shadows, and Stellar Blade, which are the most expensive on this list, but even so, it's not like they were $80 experiences, and there's no way that a game like Monster Hunter Wilds or Assassin's Creed Shadows would have made money if they were full price. So that's also not a good look for the industry. It just goes to show that when your price tag is lower, you're going to sell more copies of a game, and that means you're going to make even more money. So that's not good for the main industry. That's not good for the EAs and the Ubisofts. Surprising nobody, Monster Hunter Wilds holds down the top spot, and that's unlikely to be beaten. Split Fiction, another game from a smaller studio but funded by EA, is in 4th, and Stellar Blade, Dune Awakening, and Mecha Break round out the top 10. There are some really phenomenal games on this list, and I'm so glad to see so many good titles finding success, but when games like Clair Obscur Expedition 33 and Peak and Schedule 1 and Repo and Split Fiction are doing so good and can hold their own against major games like Monster Hunter Wilds and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Assassin's Creed Shadows, that's not good for the large companies in the industry. So I'm just really happy to see that so many talented and passionate developers are breaking through in this industry and are making games that are making money. So almost half of this year's top performing Steam games have come from AA or indie studios, and I'll definitely be keeping my eye on the Steam charts over the second half of the year to see what else kind of makes a lot of money and what else really just dominates. I don't think that Monster Hunter Wilds is going to get beat, but I guess you never know. Though that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.
So I've got a question for you. Can you trust Steam reviews anymore? Can you trust the Steam AI disclosure? You'd like to think that you can, but today we've got this story. One where two games from, when you follow the whole chain, billion-dollar companies just broke Steam's biggest rules. I mean, one of them should be pretty much one of the biggest rules, review manipulation. And so far, these companies are getting away with it. And if Valve don't solve this, it will open the floodgates to behavior that, at least in one case with the reviews, would completely ruin trust on the platform. So basically, what if a Steam review was about as trustworthy as an Amazon one? Don't think that's the Steam that you and I want to use. Also, here's something you'll find interesting that I just found out using Ground News, who are today's sponsor. You know the Screen Actors Guild strike in gaming? Well, they just reached a tentative deal that's ending the year-long video game strike. But what's interesting is watching how outlets spin it differently. Ground News here shows 98 sources covering the story, and the framing is all over the map. Some outlets lead saying strike suspended, others emphasize that it's a tentative agreement, which is a little bit more optimistic. And here's another bit that caught my eye. UK outlets are calling the AI stuff a direct threat to the industry, but the US-centered sources, they're focusing more on the AI protections being secured. Essentially, it's kind of like same deal, but different narratives, different framings about whether voice actors won or just got a okay compromise. You also can see the bias breakdown. It tells its own story. 63% center coverage, but only 5 right-leaning sources touched this. And look, when a major labor news story gets ignored by one side of the spectrum, that's you not being served. That's you missing out on part of the conversation. And that's one example of why I rely on Ground News' Vantage plan. There's so much else as well. I mean, here I can see 98% high factuality or above ratings for the sources. I can compare how the different outlets package the same facts. And all that helps me catch what your usual sources may end up skipping on. And once you're set up, say by adding the entertainment and gaming pages, you can just get ahead of industry news and actually see the big picture. So go to ground.news/bellular, and that's where you'll get 40% off unlimited access with the Vantage plan. That's what I use. That's the best deal that you'll get. And the link to get it is just down below in the video description. Alright, I've first got to set the scene before we get to the naughty rule breakers of today. So on Steam, right, usually rule breakers kind of get nuked. I mean, here's an example from February where users flagged a game called Piratefy. And as it turns out, it was just riddled with what they suspected was malware. So that happened. 4 days after the game launched, Steam killed its store page, then they reviewed everything, and 2 days after that, users who ran the game in their machine got warning emails about potential risk. And this is an example of things going right. You see, Rule 9 of Steam onboarding states that you should not distribute malware. Shocking thing. But here, a clear violation led to a very clear result. As was the case with this other story, where an entire publisher's library was pulled because they were essentially churning out endless fake games designed to manipulate Steam's trading card economy. Kind of crazy stuff. And we've seen instances of individual devs being whacked for trolling, for ban evasion, and if you're an angry dev who decides to tweet a death threat to Gabe Newell, yeah, you will be taken out on Steam. Now, in every example here, it's a very clear pattern, and it's what we would all want. A rule is broken, Valve finds out, they take action, and there you go, everything is good, the platform is healthy. But here's the thing, those examples were mostly smaller teams, mostly indies. This week, though, we've got 2 listed companies breaking Steam's rules. And this sort of thing has happened before. Remember the whole discussion about the in-game advertisements and how a whole bunch of companies were essentially just kind of flying in under the radar, being unpunished? Well, I actually think today's situation is even worse. First up today, we got Naxxon, and they're no stranger to controversy, like, say, the MapleStory lawsuits, the Dark and Darker lawsuits, but now it's their abuse of Steam reviews. And I think this is one we should be absolutely scathing and clear about, because it's goddamn ridiculous. So here's how it went down. Last week, Blue Archive launched in Steam, and if you've got no idea what Blue Archive is, good for you. You're free. But so you're not confused, it's a huge gacha game. It's been going for a few years, I think 4, very popular in mobile, and now it's on PC. and it seems to be doing real well. 91% positive reviews from 8,524 users. Pretty damn good. Now, say you're a connoisseur of the whole collectible girls plus concept genre of game, so all the gacha games. You'd probably think the Blue Archive is just as good as this gacha darling. And take a look at this particular YouTube video. It serves as a good example. The title is I played Umemasashi Pretty Derby because it had 96% positive reviews. Now, what if you saw a similarly titled video but about Blue Archive saying 91% reviews? You'd probably think it's really good. But here's the thing. While those reviews look similar, you would be wrong to trust them because there's a key difference. Cygames are not breaking Steam's rules, but Nexon is. You see, to celebrate Blue Archive's PC launch, Nexon created celebration events. There's a fan art contest for currency or Steam gift cards, social media raffle for currency, and then there's the big problem, a Steam review event, where basically all users get in-game gifts once Steam hits a target number of reviews. Negative or positive, doesn't matter, it's just the number of reviews. Now here's the thing. Steam's rules for user reviews are crystal clear. I will quote them. Don't attempt to abuse or artificially manipulate the review system. Don't solicit reviews in exchange for any games, DLC, money, or other rewards. Absolutely clear-cut. Those rules are being broken. And it does kind of make sense why they would try it. I mean, review manipulation is completely commonplace on mobile stores. It's one of the reasons why so many of those games have massively inflated review scores, by the way. They're not actually that good. But of course it's done for a reason. The good reviews look good. They encourage early adoption. They make something spread more. But of course, on Steam, unlike the mobile stores, it is explicitly against the rules. Now, Nexon is worth a hell of a lot of money. They're a big company, and they're even worth a lot of money to Valve. And that means there's a real simple question here. How much does Valve value their own rules? How much do they value that? Will they make an example out of this game? What will they actually do? Because the rules are being broken. And if a rule is broken and you do nothing, people will question the rule. And this brings me to today's second defendant. The Alters is the new game from 11-bit. You probably know 11-bit from Frostpunk. And the good news is, it's a great game. It's 86% on OpenCritic, 88% on Steam, and that's all from real, non-Blue Archived reviews, which is nice. The problem is 11-bit's mistake with false representation of generative AI. So here's essentially what happened, right? A user noticed that background art contained an AI prompt. It was a bunch of code, but one of the lines was basically the prompt. Now, this was a small asset. It was the kind of thing that basically would normally be covered by lorem ipsum text. So basically, some AI-generated placeholder stuff, and in this case, they basically used AI to generate some technobabble stuff, but then they left it in. And look, if they didn't notice that, and that was the reason why they didn't use the disclosure on Steam, I suppose that would have been kind of understandable. But it actually turns out it's not just that, because something else happened. Non-English users noticed something altogether different. Those same prompts appeared in subtitles on some of the in-game movies. Now, when called out for this issue, 11-bit did confirm that both things were true, that the art was indeed placeholder text that wasn't removed, but that the subtitles was actually deliberate. And here's how they explain it. It's late in development for their game, and the team decides to implement these movies. But they have a problem, and that problem is localization. Their localization partner would not be able to get that stuff done in time. And that essentially meant that with the time they had, 11-bit could either ship no subtitles for them, or they could translate them in-house with the resources that they had. Where clearly, of course, they just went to using chatbots for that. Which is kind of understandable. A language model is pretty good at translating language. Obviously not as good as a proper creative localization job, but you get the point. They went to that technology. Now, they say that this was only 0.3% of the overall text in the game, and so they decided to just make that call, to use the chatbots so that they could have the subtitles. Now, in their statement, they acknowledge that the wrong call was made, and they say that they should have simply let you know. Yeah, duh, they should have. But not just because it's the right thing to do. Actually, they should have because they need to. You see, Steam has got generative AI disclosure rules, and the rule states, pre-generated any kind of content created with the help of AI tools during development. So clearly, 11-bit also broke Steam's rules. And to be clear, Steam's definition as it stands is pretty damn broad. So if your game is using AI services during development, that's something you've got to disclose, seemingly, whether it makes it to the final product or not. It's broad as hell, but that's the wording of the rule. So 11-bit may have intended to do this and then replace the content, but they launched without the disclosure that they needed. And as of the time of writing, there is still no disclosure. Now sure, if they put that disclosure there, maybe they would have lost a few sales on the launch of the game, or something like that. But I've got to imagine that audience trust and not breaking Steam's rules, those things should almost certainly be higher. So that's our two naughty games companies. Now, in a way, this could all just seem like tattling to the teacher, you know? Gabe, these developers are doing a terrible thing in your platform, yeah. No, it's not that. There's a reason why I bring all of this up. You see, in both cases, there have been no consequences. Nexon has not retracted their overt review manipulation campaign. 11-bit have not updated their store page. How little effort would it take to update the store page? I mean, come on. Now, sure, there's bad PR in both cases, but there's little material consequence coming from Valve. And unfortunately for Valve, a pattern is beginning to form. 11-bit and Nexon broke the rules, as did the smaller games that I opened up today's video with. Now, those small games, like with malware and other things, were very easy to punish. But a well-liked, well-selling game from a real big company that's worth a lot of money? That's, in a way, harder to punish for Valve. It certainly seems so anyway. I mean, in one way, it's actually just as easy. The rules are the rules. Just apply them, forehead. But that's not really how reality ends up working. What Valve has got to do is manage their relationships with each company. And here it would appear that the value of the relationship and the associated revenue with that is worth more to Valve than their own rules. But I think they should be worried about that, because I think we both know what this really would do. It would set a precedent. The point can be made with a very simple hypothetical. What happens when another developer manipulates reviews with exactly the same tactics as Blue Archive did, and then they get punished by Valve, but they just say, but what the hell? You let Blue Archive happen. You never issued a statement and you never punished Nexon. Why are you being unfair to me? And yeah, Valve could say, well, look at the rules, you broke them. To which the company could rightly say, well, clearly, Valve, it's not a rule because those people, Blue Archive, also broke it and you didn't do anything about it. Now, look, what I'm about to say is not really apples to apples, but there's a reason why, right? In the legal system, you have the law as it is written, but then you've also got case law. And the idea being that case law guides a judge on how to interpret the word of the law and actually apply it in, a real material scenario. So here, think of Valve kinda like the judge. I mean, they're also legislative, but you get my point, right? What Valve have got to do is act. And they need to act because they need to set a precedent of how their rules are followed. And that's the problem with Valve's kind of fluffily worded rules. Even take the generative AI one. Technically, you could argue that almost any game would fall under that if their business operations are running on an email platform that perhaps AI auto-labels their emails, because that would be contributing to how the game is actually made. So from that perspective, not only have Valve got a very poorly worded AI disclosure policy thing, as for their actual rules, like the ones that Nexon are maliciously exploiting, well, if Valve have the rules and they don't enforce them, then that would essentially be seen as, oh, well, in that case, you set the precedent that doing this at the level of Blue Archive does not get you slammed, doesn't get you banned or actioned against. And that's what could lead other developers and publishers to try the same thing. And if Valve was to punish them, they could probably even make a legal case of Valve incorrectly applying their rules, as is understood through Valve, basically not giving a shit about their rules earlier. And I suppose if you're a Nexon stan, you could kind of say, well, hey, they don't specify that the review needs to be positive. It's not asking for that, therefore it should be fine. Well, no, it still is manipulation. It's similar to, like, preaching to your own choir. The people targeted by this are Blue Archive players, people who would want the game to succeed and who will get rewards for the review milestones. So of course those will skew positive. Of course it is manipulation. And that erodes the value of and the trust in Steam reviews. And that is something that cannot become normal. As for 11-bit, well, they broke the rule. There should be a slap. But ultimately, I do think it was a misjudgment impacting a very small part of the game. Certainly, insofar as like AI disclosure related things would go, there is far more malicious stuff that could be going on. But that doesn't mean Valve shouldn't do anything, because if Valve does nothing here, they would just give the impression that this sort of thing is okay, and that they don't take their own rules seriously. And of course, you just know that if that happens, the grifter types would take any wiggle room that they could get and absolutely use it as a justification to just go hog wild. So something needs to be done, but it's still not as blatant a violation of the wording and the spirit of the rule as in the Nexon situation. So Valve, give them a slap, project to the rest of the industry that you're not asleep at the goddamn wheel, because if you are asleep at the wheel, the norms on your platform will change. One where we as customers cannot trust reviews, as an example. And guess what? If it's bad for us, if we can't trust reviews, if we can't trust the disclosures are actually authentic, we will feel less confidence. We'll be less likely to buy on Steam, or at the very least, we'll think twice. And as anyone who understands sales knows, the second someone is starting to think twice, your conversion rate just absolutely falls to shit. So to Valve, I have a very simple message. Would you trust someone who doesn't enforce their own rules? I don't think you would. I don't think we should. So get on it. And to see what happens when you take a set of rules, the Stop Killing Games movement, and the death of Anthem, watch this video next.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day.
Halo Studios was hit by Microsoft and Xbox layoffs too, and Dev says nobody, quote, is really happy about the quality of the next game. Great. This, comes after the news from last week where they let Microsoft let go of 9,000 people. A good chunk of people at Microsoft's subsidiary Xbox also lost their jobs as part of this. But this news comes from an Engadget report, as you can see here. Even before the layoffs, there was tension. Quote, "I'm personally super pissed," a developer told Engadget. At least 5 employees at Halo Studios have been fired as part of a company-wide layoffs at Microsoft on Wednesday, according to the developer with knowledge of the situation. An estimated 200 to 300 people remain at the studio. Dude, imagine how much it would suck to be like in a team of 300 people and then you're one of the 5 people. Like you're one of 5 people that were just selected out of the ether to be sacrificed at the altar of Satya Nadella. It's crazy. Employees across Microsoft's Xbox division received an email from Phil Spencer Wednesday morning addressing organizational shifts, which just means we're firing a lot of you, hitting the team over the coming days. Halo Studio employees were laid off, received an additional invite to a meeting with the organization leaders, and 2 very long hours later, the team's call began. Amid discussions, what's funny, it's 2 hours later, the Zoom call or the Teams call began. If it was a Zoom call, it would have been immediate. The Teams call was just so buggy and broken, they couldn't get into the call. Amid discussions of severance packages, the reasons provided for the firings aligned with Spencer's memo to, quote, increase agility and effectiveness. Just corporate jargon for we just need to fire people because we got to free up some money. This is pretty normal. I'm personally super pissed that Phil's email to us bragged about how this was the most profitable year ever for Xbox in the same breath as pulling the lever on the layoffs, the developer told Engadget. I wasn't sure what part of that was supposed to be proud about. Yeah, it's the difference between somebody that sits in like the corporate office versus the developers that are getting fired. The corporate office is like, yeah, best year ever. Let's trim the fat more and make it an even better year so we get our bonuses. And then people getting fired obviously are not privy to that. This is why I love The Office for many reasons, the American Office. But the American Office had some great episodes where like they explored this same mentality where it was like, you would see a manager prompted, hey, if you fire these people, if you cut the budget by this amount, you can get a bonus. They won't get anything, but you'll get a bonus. And so then the manager is incentivized to go and be cutthroat and kind of screw over the employees so that they can benefit more directly from the downsizing. It's a fantastic show for many, many reasons. You should watch it if you somehow have not watched it in the last 20 years. So they continue on. They're working on multiple games, of course, including the next mainline Halo installment, and it's the steward of Halo Infinite, which is quietly spinning down its content cadence. It had a content cadence? I didn't even know that. That's news to me. The mood at the studio is tense, especially when it comes to one project that was recently in crisis, according to the developer. Quote, "I don't think anybody is really happy about the quality of the product right now." I mean, it's not great when the team making a product says no one here is happy with it. Give us money, please. Like, I'm sold. I'll tell you what. There's been a lot of tension and pep talks trying to rally folks to ship. The studio recently teased that it would reveal what it's been working on at this year's Halo World Championship in October. Halo Studios was rocked by layoffs in 2023, back when it was still called 343, and that culling mostly affected people on the campaign and narrative teams, including Halo veteran Joe Staten. This is also the reason Halo Infinite hasn't had a continuing storyline since that time period. Today, Halo Studios employs a blend of full-time employees and contractors, with junior producers and quality assurance roles generally contracted out. And this is crucial to understand. The way Microsoft works as a corporation is that they use a lot of contracted work. My dad, as I've told you guys a bajillion times, has worked with Microsoft in varying capacities for decades. But one of the ways he works is through contracted work. So he works at a separate company, and Microsoft hires them to come in and help finish this project that they're working on. It's kind of like, I told you guys earlier in the stream, I'm having my deck rebuilt. So I went to a company that finished my basement as well, but they also go and they do finishes and finishing work on all sorts of different projects. So they will hire the team that goes, they supervise it, and they contract out the work as a general contractor through subcontractors. Very normal for like construction and things, but it's also how Microsoft works, is that they'll hire these outside teams and groups of people to do QA, to do the animation work, to do this or to do that. It's a very common thing. However, it can lead to problems because video game development doesn't tend to work the same as like working on Windows security updates or working on Windows 11 software that doesn't work. It's just not the same thing, but they're trying to treat it the same, and that's probably why they're running into some trouble. 343 Industries came under fire from fans for the launch state of Halo Infinite. Over the years, several ex-employees have spoken out about the studio's reliance on contractors who typically work on the company with the company for a maximum of 18 months. And the thing is, after 18 months, they may be offered a full-time job, or they may not be, and they may just be cast aside. The benefit for the corporation in doing it this way is that they don't have to pay benefits. They may pay more upfront initially, for the person, compared to like a salaried position, but they don't have to pay benefits. They don't have to deal with problems with like unions. Gross. Can you imagine? They don't have to deal with any of that troublesome stuff that, of course, Papa Microsoft doesn't want to deal with. So they just use contractors. And again, another problem with this is that you work on a project that takes 5 years to finish, but if a lot of people working on it only are working on it for 12 to 18 months, there's very little consistency. I mean, you have people that come into the project halfway through and don't know anything. Like, they don't know where they started or what happened. They don't know. And again, to be very clear with the union point, because some people I'm not sure can read sarcasm, they don't like unions. They don't. I think unionizing is a great way to collectively bargain and negotiate contracts, quite demonstrably so. Microsoft does not like unions. they give that 2 thumbs down. They try very hard to avoid allowing unions, which is why they like contractors. It's the whole thing. The employee I spoke with said that since 2023, there's been a general shift towards working with contracted studios rather than individual contractors in the United States and Europe to speed up Halo production. This mirrors the way other major FPS franchises like Call of Duty and Battlefield are developed, which is true. If you remember Virtuos, these guys have worked on like everything, not just the Oblivion remake, but they've worked on like Dune Awakening, Dark Souls Remastered. They worked on Judas, Outriders. They did art production work for Stellar Blade and League of Legends. Like, this is the stuff they've worked on. No doubt you've heard of some of this. Like, look at all the companies they've worked with. All of these companies: Naughty Dog, Konami, Avalanche, Take-Two, Ubisoft, Disney, Daybreak, Crystal Dynamics, Capcom, Bethesda, Arcane, Amazon, Quantic Dream. Like, they work with all these teams. They have thousands of developers. Thousands. But they're primarily a support studio. They do contracted stuff. So this is one of those companies. They have over 4,200 people and they have 900 clients and they've worked on over 1,500 titles. But you probably like don't know them off the top of your head until the Oblivion stuff. But it's because like they are the company that a company like Microsoft will hire to help them with stuff so they don't have to, you know, have them employed and like deal with bigger teams and that type of thing. Let's see. Xbox, quote, Xbox in general feels years behind the curve in game development and it leads to a lot of wasted time and effort, the employee said. At the same time, multiple departing team members have spoken warmly about their time at Halo Studios and the people they worked with. So conflicted statements at the very least. Let's see. Layoffs at Microsoft on July 2nd affected 9,000 employees globally, including 830 in Washington, where Halo Studios is based. The Xbox division endured significant firings, game cancellations, and studio closures. Microsoft spokesperson said that the Xbox team did not absorb the majority of the layoffs, but given its relatively small size in the organization, that framing may not accurately reflect the impact, which is another important point. It's relative to the rest of Microsoft or Xbox is not that massive of a priority for them, but you know that's why 500 people laid off at Xbox still feels massive compared to like 500 in the broader scheme of Microsoft. It's like a drop in the bucket. They have, I think, 220,000 employees globally. It's crazy. And they go on more. They're doing all this. Yeah, they're trying to, their damnedest to replace as many jobs as they can with AI agents. This is, again, one of the other things. Satya is a firm believer that Copilot is going to streamline the whole company. So he's like, if we can trim fat, if we can find ways to lay people off and replace them with AI agents, awesome. Please do it. As you can see here, it's unclear how much AI has to do with the latest round of layoffs, but use of Copilot is quote unquote no longer optional. As you can see, Microsoft pushes staff to use internal AI tools more and consider this in reviews. So when you go and have your performance review, part of your performance review is how much you are using their AI tools in your workflow. They're considering formal metrics. They're also considering using the AI tools to do the employee reviews because it's unemotional. It just looks at the data and the stats. Does it sound dystopian yet? Copilot isn't even that good. Everyone knows. I agree. Everyone agrees except for Microsoft. Like, no, I don't know a single person who's like, yep, let me check with Copilot real quick. They will rather open a separate tab and then go check like ChatGPT or something over Copilot. It's just not very good. It's just not very good. CEO Satya Nadella said that as much as 30% of the company's code is now written by AI on some projects. Activision in February admitted to using AI in Black Ops 6. It's unclear how much AI has to do with the latest round of layoffs, but use of Copilot is no longer optional. Yeah, so they closed Arcane Austin, AlphaDog Games, Tango Gameworks, which was later acquired by Krafton. Microsoft reported a net revenue of $25.8 billion for the first 3 months of 2025, with an 8% yearly increase in revenue from Xbox content and services. It's just, I mean, this is the way that they do it. And a lot of people go like, Microsoft's worth $3 trillion. How could they do this? It's like, bro, they're worth $3 trillion because they do this. The day they stopped laying off thousands of people casually on a Friday afternoon is the day that they stopped being worth $3.74 trillion. Like, this is just how it works. This is what they're doing. Doesn't mean we have to like it. We can be upset about it, absolutely. But they are this massive because they are the cutthroat of the cutthroats. They are the corporate sharks of the corporate sharks. You know, they should do it again then. Oh, they will. They are not stopping, to be very, very clear. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. I think that the over-reliance on contracted labor is going to just continue to bite them in the butt. I don't think that that's a great way to build high-quality games if you are sacrificing the core dev team in the process. Obviously, a lot of amazing studios use contracted work. We just saw an example of a team that works with many of them. But if you are laying off huge chunks, like literally decimating the core dev team, and you're like, we'll just fill it in with contracted work. I don't think that's a great way to build games. I don't think that's a great way to create a safe environment for developers to come and pour their hearts and souls into projects. I think that's a great way to harbor resentment and to get people to leave and go find places where they are valued and appreciated, you know? So we'll see. We'll see how it continues to develop. We won't see the ramifications of all of this until, like, you know, until probably 2027, 2028. It's going to take a few years, but yeah, fire everyone. Infinite money. Yeah, problem solved. Guys, I figured it out. But going back to this, just to tie this in, Jake, when you cut the clip, the specific project, we don't know if that's talking about the next mainline Halo game or if he's talking about it like a separate spin-off project that's also in the works. But either way, for a company like, you know, Halo Studios to say that everybody there working on X product is not happy with it, that's not good. Even if it's a spin-off project, that's bad. So maybe he's talking about the next mainline Halo game, maybe, or maybe he's talking about a separate project. We just don't know. But either way, you'd hope that they'd just be happy with it and excited by it. But I guess time will tell. Time will tell. He took my thing. Red flag, red flag.
16 times the detail.
عمي عمي عمي
أمان 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 أمن على المكان شباب دير بالك اثنين شرطة جوال يا الله ايش قد فرع السلاح كل اثنين بخير؟ ايش تسوي الشرطة هنا في جهة من المدينة؟
نعتقل ذول الاثنين سيدي.
احنا نعتقل الناس مرة ثانية؟
نعم سيدي.
والله تطور.
داعش بده ينكسر ويقلب.
ذولا كانوا يعرفون هيك؟ على شنو تعتقلهم ذلك؟
مخدرات سيدي، بيعبرون جهتنا على مود يبدلوهم سلاح وعتاد.
إذا جماعتنا هيك ما نحتاج إلى أي عدالات. ايش قد صار لك شرطي؟
شهرين سيدي.
تعرف تقاتل؟
ليش بعد سوات؟
سوات؟
اي.
أتمنى كلكم ميتين.
احنا ميتين.
هذول مع بالهم احنا ميتين.
ايش تسوي؟ ايش تسوي؟ لا لا ليش لا لا
كل شيء تمام؟ امان قائمة تحرك
أتمنى كلكم مت سيدي.
انت مو قلت هاي الحكاية قبل شوية؟ بس نصنا.
ولكن الناس اللي يعرفون أهمية التحقيق مع المشتبه بهم قبل ما تفتشوهم.
معنا كل واجباتهم.
يحس على الأقل ارميهم بالمسدس براسهم. حرك حرك
جوا يلا يلا انبضع. أمان شباب؟ أمان؟ أمان تمام. حرك قوم. حرك حرك. شو اسمك الثلاثي؟
ليش سيدي؟
لأنه اسمك موجود على هاي القائمة يعني أنت واحد من عندهم.
سيدي هذا اسمه شائع.
صفى لي اسمك والعمر.
ايش قد صار هالقائمة سيدي؟
ما أدري.
من وين جبتها؟
هي دائما عندنا.
احنا شرطة مثلكم.
شرطة؟
ها.
هذا هم شرطي. هذا هم شرطي. وهذا
سيدي.
وهذا وهذا وهذا.
أنا جميل القرطبي.
قرطبي. جميل زياد القرطبي. لا تخاف تم واحد من عندهم.
سيدي.
اسمي كاوا صلاح الفريلي.
هويتك؟
ما استلمت هويتي، ما صار لي هواي بالشرطة.
ايش قد عمرك؟
21 سيدي.
21. أحد بيكم الصوت؟
لا.
لا.
مو قصدي اليوم قبل أحد بالصوب علي داعش؟
لا.
يعني أنتوا آخر اثنين؟
لا.
أحد بيكم فقد عائلته على يد داعش؟
قسم قتلوهم الامريكان وقسم هاجروا وياهم.
هذا عمي.
تحبه؟
أكيد أحبه عمي.
ليش ما تبكي العبد؟
ما أعرف.
أنت متزوج؟
شنو نتزوج سيدي ما كان شفتني هنا.
شنو؟ تقصد؟ بيك هدا.
بعد صغير. عوفه بعد صغير. كمال. تعال حبيبي.
خوها ماتين؟
لا.
ليش؟
ليلة ما صاب علي داعش ولا فقد عائلته على يد داعش.
ليش انتوا كلكم صار بيكم هيك؟
أكثرنا.
بس أنا ما أعرف انتوا منو.
احنا الزلم اللي قتلنا كتالة عمك. إذا تريد تعرف أكثر أحسن لك لا تاخذ الكاسكيت العاد.
ما أريد أعوف عمي هنا.
احنا ما راح نعوفه. يلا ولا.
شو قبل ناخذ جهالك راد ويانا؟
ايش بهم الكراد؟
أنا أجيب عمك.
يلا تحرك وليد.
حاضر سيدي.
يلا شباب بسرعة.
النزعة؟
شو بس ميديوم؟
اي
ميديوم.
يلا شنو عندنا محل؟
دير بالك.
هاك هذا الحزام. اقول لك يمناوي ولا يسراوي؟ يسراوي.
سنان. يلا. انت روح للجانب الثاني يلا بسرعة.
هذول مو بس اثنين كنا نحاول نعتقلهم لنفس سيدي.
قلت لك ارجع للجانب الثاني، الاعتقالات بهالمكان وبهالوقت ما بيها كل فائدة. السجون بالعراق مثل الحب المكسور. لا تنسى قول للقيادة مالتك هذا الولد ويانا، يلا تحرك.
القيادة مالتنا عباد هو
بهالحالة راح يفرحون يسمعون هالاخبار الجديدة منك، يلا تحرك بسرعة. تحرك.
going down the main drive of the DuPont estate. And there's horses on both sides all over the place. This main drive is just so pretty. And this is up to the top of the hill. Going down the main drive of the DuPont estate. And there's horses on both sides all over the place. This main drive is just so pretty. And this is up to the top of the hill. And actually, if you take a left here and you take this road, right down this road, it leads to our house. There's our sweet old house, and we've had a lot of fun here.
Something occurred on your property yesterday, correct? Yeah, listen, I got some diplomatic papers to go over. Okay, that's fine. There's a lot of people here that are concerned about your welfare. You're a well-respected man, as far as I know, and I've always known, and I'd like to help resolve this with you. Make no deal. No deal? I'm sorry, no deal. I'm in charge around here, and that's the way it's going to be. We have to discuss. I don't want to talk about your diplomatic papers. We have to discuss that a man shot was killed on your property yesterday. You have no right to tell the interstate what to do. Keep skipping over the issue. We have to get to the issue at hand. The hand of an international war is not to be had. So I'm not leaving this house right for the moment until I'm through.
The John E. DuPont story begins here in the rolling woodland of Pennsylvania, on a 1,000-acre estate that the DuPont family have called home for 3/4 of a century. Nestling among the trees are the purpose-built headquarters of Team Foxcatcher.
Team Foxcatcher was the brainchild of John DuPont approximately 30 years ago. In that time, John supported swimming, triathlon, pentathlon, and many number of athletes in all their endeavors to be world and Olympic champions.
My goal is to teach the youth of America not only to become champions in sport, but to become champions in life. Thank you.
I'd like to draw your attention to the double doors where most of you entered, where Mr. John DuPont will do the official ribbon cutting.
Let me congratulate John DuPont on his constant, everlasting, generous philanthropy.
The DuPont family in the Philadelphia area was the equivalent of our royal family, so to speak, and he was the prince. In my younger days, I saw John for the first time walking down the pool deck. It was like, there's the picture of someone who's fit, athletic, healthy, vibrant, and seemed like a guy who had a passion for life and doing good things for people. I was like, wow, that's the guy I want to be someday.
56-2, Dave. That's good.
He created the sports program on the farm, developed all these facilities, and then, he discovered wrestling.
I don't remember really why John became as interested in wrestling as he did. I know his mother was very much against it.
He tried it when he was a kid, in high school. And part of it, I think, was rebellion, because wrestling was one of those sports that his parents didn't want him to do. Wrestling is a sport for ruffians. Wrestling is a sport for the underclass.
John really wanted to be a part of it, be a part of that culture, which, those guys are tough.
David Schultz, 1983 world champion, 84 Olympic champion, 7-time national champion. A wealth of experience out there on the mat, Mark Scott.
It's like if wrestling's the game, Dave Schultz was the player. Dave really just embodied the spirit of the sport.
Yeah, Dave was different. I mean, he was a sort of a hippie wrestler. It was weird, really.
It's the Palangi, here's a wave. What's the other one we do?
Palm trees, fishies.
Fishies and sharks.
It was just an unbelievable adventure, living around Dave. When I first met him, I asked him, what do you do? And he's like, I wrestle. And I remember going to his room, and I'm seeing these trophies, like world trophies, and pictures of the Soviet Union and all this. I'm like, wait a minute, you don't just wrestle, you're really good. And he's like, yeah, I like it. Basically, our focus became his success in wrestling, and I was okay with that. I wanted to be a partner in that process. So all of a sudden, we were all over the world.
Dave's off for training. Going to get one more run in. He's going to run up that hill he just filmed from.
Dave was kind of this guy that used to hobble along, the goofy grin and the shuffle and kind of the little handshake. Before he stepped out to wrestle, it looked like this guy's like 80 years old and can barely walk. And then you stepped out on the mat with him and saw those two different sides to his persona. It's a pretty interesting human being.
Super mellow, unassuming, underdressed always, but, a genius freak when it came to wrestling, and you ask him any question you wanted about wrestling, and he could give you 10 different answers that all were effective solutions to whatever problem you had.
And that rolls your leg off your shoulder. Get his legs off me by dropping this leg out and throwing one off with this foot, turn belly down, and he's dust. Oh, is it working? Yeah. Hey, violent violence here. The violent violence here in Russia.
Dave loved Russia. I think he just really appreciated the culture because they're passionate about wrestling. Dave was passionate about wrestling. And then of course Dave kind of learned the language a little bit so he can kind of communicate with them, and he was, picking their brains.
Dave learned how to speak Russian because he wanted to hear what the Russian coaches were saying, because, they're the best coaches in the world. What are they saying?
Russia's got like 40, 50 world championships. They only started in the 50s, but once they started, they were dominant.
That brings the team score now to 11-9 in favor of the Soviet Union over the United States.
problem with wrestling in the United States was that when our guys got to a certain age level, they had to drop out of the sport in order to support their families. Whereas the foreign countries in Russia and the Eastern Bloc countries, it was a career for those guys. And so it put us at a huge disadvantage.
I wanted the U.S. to beat the Russians. All those years I had coached, we were second. We just couldn't get over the hump to beat the Soviets.
But then John and Foxcatcher came into the picture and changed it.
He was introduced as a philanthropist that was interested in supporting and helping wrestling in a time when we really, really needed the help at USA Wrestling financially.
How's he looking? And so John started providing a stipend to USA Wrestling, and that was part of the deal. But the real deal was the farm.
What do you think about life on the farm with John DuPont?
It's very nice out here. I like it a lot. What are they building over there?
Oh, they're building a new wrestling room.
Oh, that's nice.
Do you like wrestling?
Yes, I love it. I love it. It's really fun.
There's the new building. Shaping up pretty well.
John started inviting individuals one at a time to come live in the houses and paid them a salary to be on his team.
First time I met John, he said, come on out to Pennsylvania as soon as you can. You know, I want you to see the farm and see the facilities, and, you know, I'd like to talk to you about coming out there.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've just landed in Philadelphia. Welcome. We hope you have a pleasant stay, and please fly us again soon.
Flew into Philly. He had a limo pick me up, which that was pretty amazing. Took me to the farm, dropped me off, and of course you come onto the farm and it's pretty much overwhelming. I didn't know much about DuPonts themselves, you know, the family and their history, but it sure, wow, we're talking some serious wealth here.
2,000 acres of just rolling scenery. Robbie's running with the horses.
Am I winning?
He's winning.
Here we are at the training center of Foxcatcher. Hi-ho, 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 off to wrestle we go.
They built this $1 million wrestling facility on the thing, 3 50 by 50 mats, and there was a weight room and a locker room and offices, and I mean, it was amazing.
Good. This is the training room. This is our trainer, Dave.
Hi, Dan's friends. Everyone Dan knows.
Yeah. You know, I asked for expenses to be paid for training and then a place to live. He said, yeah, here you go. That was it. Not like when I was at Arizona State and I'm digging under my floor mats in my old van looking for quarters so I can buy a Big Mac on a coupon, 2 for $1, $1.25. Now, it's kind of whatever you want.
It's John's philosophy that if he can do away with some of the hindrances that these athletes have, then they can concentrate on training. I believe with John's continued support that one day the U.S. will be the #1 wrestling power in the world.
We never had an opportunity like that in wrestling. And so we thought, well, this is it. This is what we need to be the best.
This is going to be real hard.
John started telling me he's going to bring in the best wrestlers in the world, the best coaches in the world. I really didn't believe him at first. He was telling me he was going to bring Dave Schultz in. And I said, really? As soon as he said that, I said, okay, I'm in, you know.
I picked up the telephone one day and I called Palo Alto, California. And I got Dave Schultz on the telephone.
Dave just thought it was an unbelievable idea. He saw that this guy, this DuPont guy, had been funding some swimming and some, other events, and he thought, well, maybe we have an opportunity here to grow our sport.
My name is Dave Schultz. My involvement here at Foxcatcher is as an athlete. I I train here. I work with DuPont and Humphrey. They put a training program together for me. And I also assist in other ways. I help out with athletes, coaching, and that's about it.
What are the long-range goals for Dave Schultz looking toward the next year or two?
I want to be the world champion in 1991 and the Olympic champion in 1992. And then I want to quit. Before all my hair falls out.
John wanted to be the face of the program, but you know what? He was the money. Dave was really the charisma, the character, the person that attracted everybody around the world to Foxcatcher.
World champion, Valentin Jordanov.
We had a tremendously pleasant surprise this year when Valentin Jordanov agreed to leave Bulgaria and come and join Team Foxcatcher for a couple of years.
Hi, my name Valentin Jordanov. Team Foxcatcher is good friend. Okay.
Valo was an amazing athlete. First time he got on top of me, he just grabbed me and picked me up off the mat. I'm going, holy shit, this guy's a little guy. How did that can't happen? This guy's special.
Една вечер, късно между 2, извънеше телефона. Аз вече съм заспал. Телефона ми беше в спалната. Дигам. От другата страна ми говори на руски човек. Дейв, това каза Валя, може ли да дойде до Щатите?
Dave and Valo became very close friends as well. You know, they had a common bond. Dave could speak Russian and Valo didn't necessarily speak the greatest English.
Let's see what the guys are up to here. Oh, there's Yancho and Alexander, the Bulgarian and the American, playing naked together in the morning.
Бяхме едно семейство, голямо семейство. Между други, нашите деца растяха заедно. Условията бяха прекрасни.
Stravka, Valentin, photograph.
It was our own community. You know, Dave was kind of like the main house because, you know, I look at Alexander and Danny and Nancy as family.
Yep. Danny Rose, hi. You helping Mom? Xander's helping. Oh, we're all helping. Isn't that swell?
They're having more of these before I leave.
Here's my house. It's a quiet little spot.
You know, there were several houses on the farm that had people living in those houses, and they were all wrestlers. And so I'd get out there and go from one house to the next house and hang out and talk and party.
Who's that coming out of there? Oh, it's the dog.
Once Foxcatcher was created, I mean, once people came and everybody started training together, it truly was a sports utopia. These families and athletes, it was something you only dream of.
Dave Schultz swinging around, yes, all right. Into the tree, oh, sweet.
You know, what he's done for all the guys on the team, there's really no way we can ever thank him except for just saying thank you, you know, and we really have a lot of affection for him, and he's become one of our best friends over the years that we've known him, and that's a real important part of it, you know, the friendship that he has with all of his athletes. On our way to Istanbul, what do you think, Eagle?
On to the World Championships and to win. Kill, kill, kill.
All right. Yeah!
For the first time in the history of wrestling in the United States, we had athletes who could stay with the sport longer because they could afford to do it.
fulfill your dream, you must first have the dream. That's my dream. It's for America to be the best of the best. Thank you.
Let's throw the fox in the pool! Yeah!
That's a big piece of ice.
Well, Mark. Wait.
Okay, ready?
Watch it, Victor. Hold on, let's get up here on the thing.
Wait, I'll film it.
Racing guy.
Hey, do you have anything to say on film? Mark! Do you have anything to say on film?
You're doing a good job. You're coming across very well.
If I try too hard to do something, I foul it up.
Well, that's difficult.
It's like a person when they wrestle. If they try to do something right, they'll foul up the move. If they do it instinctively, they'll get it right and score on their opponent, much to his surprise. So you get stuff like that from me, just off the cuff that you can use and things like that.
And I just did get that off.
That's right. I know that. That's why I continued on. I'm very quick that way. I can do that. If you just let me, if I ramble on, you get all sorts of stuff.
The conversation about John being eccentric was always out front. You know, John is a little different. There's no doubt about it, you know. Does that mean he's a bad guy?
A lot of the things he did were weird.
One day, we hear that he ended up in the pond with his car. And everyone thought that he just was going too fast, ended up in the pond.
The car company that he had bought it from gave him a loaner, and the next day, he had a high-up official in wrestling. He told him to get in the back seat, and he did the exact same thing, drove the thing into the pond. Oh, why? Who the heck knows?
Now, certainly that was an abnormal behavior, and we all saw it. And we thought, man, isn't that funny? You know, he drove his car into the lake, brand new Lincoln.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
Merry Christmas, Robbie. Hey there, Robbie. Hey, Merry Christmas. Go fast, wrestle hard.
He just had two sides sometimes where, you know, there was the normal John and then there's the John that's just, you know, you don't know what you're going to get that day, and people would walk on pins and needles not knowing what to expect.
Excuse me, sir. Sir.
You have a bunch of people all in the same experience, for better or worse. On the days when John DuPont was up and feeling really good, then spirits were great. When John was down or acting wacky, then you better, you know, kind of spunk her down here and deal with it. John's on a rampage.
As a Novikov.
I mean, everyone else would kind of say, yeah, he's a little strange, and Dave always saw the good in the guy. He was the guy who could talk to DuPont on a normal level all the time, and if you needed something and you were afraid to contact John about, Dave would do it for you.
He was the one person who could influence John in a positive direction, and the one person who could keep things on the right path so that it continued to benefit the sport and it continued to benefit Dave.
Xander's birthday party, April 8th. We got the eagle, Atama Kazuchi, the mallet head, and the little paisan.
John was this wealthy man, and then he was also like a scared kid, you know, that never really had a childhood, and you know, and you could see that, you know, that he wanted to be part of the team. He wanted to be one of the guys.
Here's the loving mother. There, the rest of the boys.
Hey, how come no one has a party hat?
Clue. Like ice cream, but
Eagle soar high.
Put him on that.
he's trying to lose a little weight so he can soar a little higher.
He was lonely, you know, and we were his friends. His family didn't see him much. He said the wrestlers were his family.
Your background, your childhood, has definitely been different. How has that affected what you do as a coach?
That's a difficult question to answer. You assume one thing and I know something else.
He wasn't real good socially. Told me himself that he had his meals in his own room, fed by a maid, until he was like 13 or something.
You know, his brothers and sisters were older, so I get the sense there was some loneliness growing up. His father divorced and moved somewhere, I think.
He's like, you don't know how lucky you are to be able to talk to your father. I'd have to set up an appointment to see my father. And half the time he wouldn't see me anyway.
His privileged lifestyle was great, but you know what? He didn't have the socialization that kids develop naturally. You know, when you're in your own neighborhood as a kid, meeting the kid next door. He didn't have that. He just had his mom around mostly.
Welcome to Foxcatcher Farms. This room is the main trophy room where a lot of our sports trophies are housed. Mother is now going to be 90 years old in June. Her original ribbons are here in this room someplace.
Mrs. DuPont was a real pillar in keeping John on track. And then when she passed away, you know, there was a big void.
1991 with the Eagle. John, do you have any words for posterity?
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Wrestle hard, wrestle fast.
The Schultzes were there on the farm, and they would come up to the big house during Christmases. They were the family to John at that point in time.
Alexander, how do you like turtle soup? How do you like turtle soup?
No, just say, hey, don't be served. No.
He called me directly, which he didn't call me very often. He just called the house and said, hey, Nancy, I don't think we have a high chair in the house, so remember to bring a high chair. And it really warmed my heart. He wanted to make that Christmas day something nice not only for him, but something nice for my kids. And there was something inside of him that really was trying to connect. So I felt like, and I know Dave did, we kind of wanted to befriend the guy, especially if he was willing to help the sport. So you kind of felt like you should reach out to him because he's reaching out to the sport.
John DuPont's a very generous person. He's a very giving person. I think I kind of look at him more as one of the athletes, I guess, than anything else. You know, he likes to do the same things we do. He likes to come in and wrestle and have fun.
This isn't gonna work too well, I'm afraid. I'm afraid to go hard with Robbie, you know?
I understand that. I'll tell you when it hurts.
No, it's too late then.
You're used to working out with somebody who's fit and who's trying to take you apart every day in a wrestling practice, which is what you want. And then you go work out with John, and he's, you know, let's say a 55-year-old guy, kind of frail, you know, kind of slow, a little bit timid.
Uh-oh.
And so you'd wrestle with him, you let him score a bit, you know, it was kind of like play wrestling. And in his own mind, he's, yeah, I'm hanging with these guys.
John would enter wrestling tournaments. John couldn't wrestle.
Stance! Get your head in there!
Don't let him have your leg! Oh, no! Let go of his head! Let go of his head! I told him to let go. He's gonna get pinned now. Let go of his head! Belly down, belly down, belly down! Oh! Dave was getting paid X amount of dollars a year, and part of his duties were obviously that. That's why he coached John.
Well, you want to see that better way to roll on that single? Yeah. You're locking here and rolling, right?
That's not the way I like to do it. I like to do it another way, though. Go ahead.
Okay, if you can, shove his head down, and then step over his head and lock. Oh, boy.
as much as John did sports, he was never an elite athlete. He could understand it, but he just down into his cells in his body, it takes something else, and he never had that.
Don't let him pin you! Get your arm out of there! Oh, that was it. That was it.
John DuPont wanted to be a world champion like the world champions that he employed and had in his club. And so he started a new style, essentially, called the Masters.
Well, Masters Wrestling, there's not a lot of guys still wrestling into your 40s and 50s.
Dear Mr. John DuPont, we are very grateful for all you have made here. Thank you very much for everything.
Most of your athletes haven't made up their mind whether they want to win or lose when they go out to compete. They don't have that determination, that desire, that burning desire to win at all costs.
John just wanted so bad to be such a great wrestler, and he couldn't do it physically. So he had people help him do it.
They're doing these staged events where you have these gorillas coming out to wrestle John and then rolling on their back, and you know, John's the champion and the people are cheering his names. It was completely absurd.
And then somebody else on the farm is coming around with a bunch of cash afterward and, you know, paying the guy off.
In John's mind, he was actually at the wrestling the Bulgarian champ and actually took him down. And he thought it was real. Now, a lot of the guys knew that, you know, okay, we're doing this, and John thinks it's real, okay, let's let him think it's real.
So, I mean, it wasn't right. But we, you know, we wanted to make him, he loved that stuff. He was so happy. And everyone was just kind of pacifying the guy because he was good for the sport.
If you go out there with that determination and that desire and that fierceness, you will win. And your future opponents will fear you.
There are three things that always were a part of the estate: the DuPont family, the wrestling, and then the hunting side. It was very difficult to be able to hunt on that estate. You had to be invited, and the people that controlled the hunting were the Newtown Square Police.
Uh-oh, the cops, we better get out of here.
Mr. Fairland, what are you doing today?
Not much, as little as possible at this point. To be honest with you, it's getting close to quitting time.
Yeah?
Dick Fairlam, who was the sergeant of police, he lived on the estate. He was one of the tenants. He handled who would be permitted to hunt on the property.
John had an awful lot of friends, and I suspect that much of that was because he was generous with respect to a lot of Delaware County institutions.
He had an outdoor shooting range on the property where we went to do our firearms training.
He had a helicopter one time, and he lent that out to surrounding townships if they needed it. He rode around town, you know, with officers. He had a uniform and everything. He was paid $1 a year just to be a reserve officer.
We had a little hunting camp set up on the property, and every hunting season we would all meet up at the hunting camp and go hunting together. Most of the hunters were police officers.
That was, you know, the thing about that place. It was like our own world. You could do so many things back there that the average person could not even consider doing. himself would hunt out of the window of his town car with a rifle, which was illegal in the area at the time.
As a result of his connection with people of consequence and his close personal relationship with law enforcement in the county, he thought he could do what he wanted. He flew the Foxcatcher flag above the American flag on Foxcatcher. It was the ultimate authority. He thought this was DuPont land.
The advantages of being a multimillionaire are fairly obvious, but what are the disadvantages?
There are many disadvantages to having money, and that is you are targeted by a great number of people who would like to take it away from you.
He was a DuPont, and people were always after him to donate to this, to donate to that. I think he'd been sued for some things that were real or not real.
So many people were there to use John. John had no idea who his real friends were, I don't believe.
I'm sure in his own mind he was trying to figure out, are these guys here because they like me, or are they here because, you know, I'm providing this facility for them, or I'm paying them? That probably played around in his mind over and over, I'm sure. Guy's got a lot of money. He's living on a big property. So to me, it was like, all right, a little paranoia was probably appropriate. You know, I think it progressed a little bit further than that.
He would actually videotape the woods across the field, and he would tape it for hours on end, and then he'd sit and watch it, and it was a still picture of the woods, and he would try to get people to buy into things he was seeing in the woods.
Okay, look at that. Tell me, do you see something moving in there? And you'd say no, and he'd get a little frustrated, you know, and then he'd fast forward. All right, now look at this. This is where it is. You know, look at this. Do you see something moving, or do you see this? Do you see, you know, a shape in there, a form in there? And no.
I thought maybe it's a psychological game he's playing, or maybe it's just a power trip on his part. Like, I want to see if they'll just follow me and believe something. You know, when you're in that moment situation, you're like, are you serious? You know?
You can't just nod, because sometimes he would mean it in psychosis or whatever, but other times he would bait you. He'd look out over the field and say, you see those deer? They're really people dressed up as deer, or they're mechanical deer and someone's planting them there. And if you say, oh yeah, John, I see what you mean, I'll say, no, they're not, they're really deer.
There were guys that fueled his paranoia and, you know, oh yeah, maybe I see it. You know, those kind of comments would just get him to go even farther.
I generally went somewhat along with it to a degree, just because my position was not one of great security. Whereas Dave Schultz, being, in my opinion, the truest friend John had, would not agree.
Some of the guys who stayed at Foxcatcher developed an affection for John, and Dave probably more than anybody. And Dave genuinely liked John and tried to help him.
We'd take turns staying with John, kind of watching him and making sure he was okay.
And you know, we would do it in shifts. You know, like I'd leave at like 9:30, and after the kids would go to sleep, Dave and Vallow would come up, and they'd hang out at the big house until like 11. And it was very benign. You just sit over there and watch television, or you go down and play pool.
It was an ongoing process where he was helping us be wrestlers, and we were trying to help him to be social. And you know, that's kind of the way I always looked at it.
You know, I felt sorry for John because he was so needy.
He would obsess on people and sort of want to be around that person most of the time. And so, you know, when I came, I think it was probably Robbie. Dave was that person, I think, you know, while I was there. And Dan, the same kind of thing with Dan, you know, we'd really want to have Dan around. And towards the end of the time I was there, it was Valentine.
How you doing today, Eagle?
Super.
I'm ready.
Here's an optimist, always ready for a little action. How you doing, Valo? Good. Good.
I'm ready for Eagle.
Are you ready for Eagle? Yes. I don't know.
Like, it would be over at the big house and be like, okay, you know, time to go. Valentine's coming. Sort of implied that you leave now, and Valentine's gonna sit down, and I'm gonna hang with him.
Hey, Valo.
You ready?
Yep.
You know, it was a lot of Valentine, you know, and the more he would obsess over Valentine, the more he would obsess over this whole, I'm a Bulgarian.
John started sponsoring the Bulgarian team, and he decided that he originally was a Bulgarian. He was a descendant of whomever.
I was like, no, you're not. You're not Bulgarian. You guys are French. You're one of the most famous French families in the world. He'd have none of that, you know. No, you know, this is why I identify with Valentine, because of my Bulgarian heritage.
John was frustrated, very frustrated, because he wanted to be very close with Valentine Yordanov. And Dave and Vala were very, very good friends. So I think there was a big jealousy of Dave.
Последната година, където се забеляза така напрежение, това са такива неща. Аз не мога да знам кой има в главата му.
What is his opinion? What is it? По-вашему, что ви думаете? He can't talk. He's
He is. He's so I don't know if he's mad or not. Don't be mad, John. Come on, man. Don't be mad at me. I just got to get a little tape working here.
We sign in Bulgarian. We sign in Bulgarian.
There he is. I know you're fired up, man. I know I'm not.
Fuck the world. I'm going to kill them all.
Oh, shit. Oh, God, Dick.
This is going to be a dark, bleak trip.
We're talking about a triangle there. You know, where does DuPont fit with that really close friendship triangle? And DuPont was kind of outside the circle.
Yeah, he said, fuck the world, kill them all, I think.
I think that was the direct quote.
I think that was the quote.
Okay.
He observed how people did like to gravitate towards Dave. And I think that sort of got to John a little bit.
You could just tell, because when John would go through some of his like fantasies, sometimes he threw Dave in there.
He believed Dave Schultz and Rob Calabrese had a weather machine and could control the weather. He also got convinced there were tunnels going into the mansion, going out of the mansion, and that Dave Schultz used these tunnels to mess with him.
Oh, what do we have here?
When it was, you know, getting bad, he'd be like, there's people in the walls, and I think it's Schultz or something. You know, he'd say something crazy like, and I'd say, Dave Schultz isn't in your walls, John.
Show us around your room.
We were all like brothers on the estate. We trusted each other.
Hi there.
And DuPont, we trusted him up to a point, but you know, the fact that he would hire a security firm to protect him, and he would say that he's protecting him from one of us.
Some friends from Secret Service contacted me and said that John DuPont had been involved with some threats. And so that's what prompted him to reach out to us.
His security became an issue, and that's where things got creepy. Having these special force FBI, you know, CIA guys around him, John became super hyper paranoid.
It was tunnels, it was mechanical trees, which he thought were built by his father as props for garden parties. And so whether I believe it's a fact or not, it's worth an investigation. So we started out with these, you know, low-level investigative efforts. Dig a hole right there in the yard, and let's see what we find. Let's bring a metal detector in and see what we find. And then we got ever more sophisticated as John kept insisting. We brought in some technical equipment and some technical people.
They would never say, oh, no one's in your walls. We'll go in your walls and look. We'll get x-rays. We'll knock the walls down. I'm like, why don't you just tell them no one's there, you know?
It wasn't my job to question what his concerns were, but to try to allay his fears. In other words, to factually say, this individual is not a threat for these reasons, or this doesn't exist.
John had definitely been acting worse, acting more erratic. It just kept getting stranger and stranger.
During that one period of time, the color black was something bad to him.
He said that black was color of death. So you couldn't wear black shirts. He got rid of all the black horses. I had a black car. I had to get rid of that.
Hey, you looking at me?
Yeah.
And then he had fired all the athletes that were African-American off the team.
Now we start talking. I mean, what's going on with this guy? Why would he do something like this?
We talked to them about it. You know, you really don't want to be in this position of being perceived as racist on this. And he didn't buy into that and said, well, it's not that. I just don't want black. Kevin Jackson was at the peak of his game. And to have to call him up and say, Kevin, I got bad news for you, was just heartbreaking.
Greg has explained to me, yeah, he won't let me drive my black van on the property. He's kicked off Pritchard and Fisher. And then he looks at me and says, you too. And for me, it's hard for me to believe because I'm already Olympic champion, world champion. That's the last thing I expected.
When that happened with Kevin Jackson, I felt that we should have disassociated from DuPont at that point in time. And I was just purely asking for someone to hold him accountable for his actions.
You got 4 or 5 black guys getting kicked off a team by your main sponsor. And nothing's done, nothing's said, and he's still, VIP, still your main guy?
Maybe that should have been enough of a warning. But in any case, for whatever reason, we didn't really do anything about it at that point. I guess to some degree, we were taking advantage financially of the benefits that we were getting.
And there it is, final team score, 21-15. The United States wins the World Cup.
Right now, it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. Had to entertain you and Dave at the big house. Lots of fun. You know, this thing is really beautiful. Some of the colors on it, the shine.
John became more and more nocturnal. About 11 o'clock at night, he would get himself spun up. And as we found out later, it was probably by virtue of chemical enhancement.
I knew that he was doing cocaine because he would stay up. I mean, I'd be at his house staying and he wouldn't sleep. I could hear him up walking the halls, you know, all night.
You know, he became obsessed. I would like try and ask him about a piece of furniture, but then he would slowly get into the wood grain of the furniture and then actually seeing bugs or something or creatures.
Whether you know it or not, your little slime bug friends have added to the golden gloss that it has. It would not have that if it had not been for them. What's this thing? You had all sorts of friends to go with you.
He thought bugs were underneath the skin, and he would scratch them until they would bleed. And we're going, well, he's doing something. He's doing drugs, you know, and he's going crazy.
Subjectively, in my observations, yeah, it got worse and worse. He had periods there where he was walking around in draping red clothing saying he's the Dalai Lama.
Rubber legs.
There were a few concerns that Dave shared with me about John carrying a handgun around the place. And at one time, I think he had seen some things in the trees, and he actually shot up into the trees.
He would walk around carrying it under here, you know, and it's like that thing could fall and go off and hit you. And so I didn't like to be around him when he was carrying his gun around.
Every day when I drive the 10 miles to Foxcatcher, the closer I got, the more nervous I got. I'm getting nervous to where I'm shaking, going into work.
We called it the solar system at the farm. You know, the big house being the sun, and the closer you got to the sun, the more likely you were to get burned. So really, the athletes tried to not get too close to the sun.
But then there's a group of guys that really cared about John.
Robbie and Dave were the ones that would go talk to him and say, "Are you okay? What's going on?"
We approached him and said, "John, you're getting way too paranoid." We talked to Dr. Gastigian about it. They said there's probably just chemical imbalance here. It could probably be fixed with medicine. And we went and told him that, and he got really mad. He's like, "I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me, you know. You guys just don't believe me."
Things just started going south real quick. And then, you know, then he started the whole thing with Dan.
This is my house on the backside.
When things really started to go down, Dan was close to the center.
I was living there on the farm, and then, not even through John's own words, but through his attorney, that John wants you to move off the estate. Well, that was a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow.
John initially told Dan to leave the farm. Dan didn't do it right away, so John had a U-Haul brought to his house and parked it in front, and it just sat there.
Move yourself and save. Okay.
Wait, we got some wild maniac down this way, bit.
I was in the weight room lifting, and he came in with the gun. He walked up to me, and he gets the gun, and he points it at my chest. He goes, "Don't you with me, I want you off this farm." And I just shrunk my head, and I showed him the palms of my hands, and I just said, "John, I don't know what this is all about. I've only tried to be your friend." And it was just enough. He backed up, he put the gun down, and then he ran back to the big house.
There's that beautiful looking eagle.
And Dan's like, "DuPont just pulled a gun on me." He stuck it to my chest and said, "Get off the farm." But that's typical stuff.
You know, a lot of people made a joke out of it. I called the police. I told him John had pulled a machine gun on me, and he laughed. He said, "Well, I've known John a long time. He's always been a little different." Newtown Square police officer.
There was a growing number of incidents prior to this. Minor incidents, nothing serious. Arguments, fights, allegations back and forth.
Early the next morning, we get woken up. This is by far the weirdest situation that I have ever seen in my life. Here's the moving van. John, or somebody, I don't know if it's John or who, burnt down this house next door. This is weird, man. This place has turned into like a battle zone or something. There was a big old fire in here. with flames coming out of the windows. Here's the inside. Unbelievable. Wow, this is so weird. Oh shit, I hope this comes out. Look at that shit. There's the tree through the wall and chairs. Wow. And then that was it. As soon as the smoke cleared, I called USA Wrestling immediately. I flew out to Colorado to meet with them and plead, get those guys out of there.
That was the one incident where a gun was pulled, where we all asked ourselves, wait a second, maybe this is more than just eccentric behavior.
The executive director of USA Wrestling calls me up and says, I need you on a conference call. We're going to debate this issue. So we get on this conversation, and the conversation digresses quickly.
And there were some people on the board who were adamant that, hey, we need to cut ties.
You know, we should probably just take steps to separate ourselves from John. We couldn't kick him out of the sport. He was free to do whatever he wanted to do, but we could turn back his resources.
But then Dave says, and this was probably the deciding moment after this hour-long debate, argument, you know, we get down to this and Dave says, I have my family and children on the farm. If I thought for one moment they were in danger, I would pack up and leave. And so I thought, well, that's convincing.
Okay, you ready to run to Jim?
Right, come on, run to me.
Okay, put your feet down and run to Jim.
Come on, run to me, run to me, come on. Come over here, come over here. All right.
I flew back to Foxcatcher just right around the middle of November, and there was some tension. I just pulled the truck back up and started loading so I could get the hell out of there. This is David
Number
Schultz.
one surfer, Dan Shea, just fell off the wave.
It's clean, huh?
It's looking good.
Clean.
It's looking good.
Dave said, you know, it's just drawn, you know, I think he just was fixated on you and, you know, tried to really keep directing it towards me. I'm going, you gotta be kidding me, right? Got the van in the van.
Dan took that movie van, he filled it up and took it, and left his van over at Dave's house, and that caused all kinds of problems.
Now, John is focusing on Dave's house, on Dave. Like, why is the truck there? What's in the truck? You know, who knows what went through his mind?
What do you call her baby mouth? Does she have a mouth like a baby?
Look it.
Uh-huh.
A funny mouth. Isn't that funny?
Some of the people who work security for DuPont informed him that Shade was on the property. And DuPont got high or drunk or both and went to David's home with a rifle looking for Shade.
He did come down to the house carrying a shotgun, was drunk, and then as soon as he came in the door, Dave just stopped me at the front door and said, John, you can't come in my house like this, especially not with a gun. Give me the gun. And John gave him the gun. And John was so drunk, he fell down. He just stumbled and fell down. He hit his head on a windowsill and cut his head open. We had to call a doctor and have him stitched up.
In the morning, he woke up. He's like, what happened? What's going on? Like, looked like Raging Bull, you know? Couldn't open it, big puffed up. And he said, what's it look like? I said, it looks like you got hit with a bat.
And from that, DuPont manufactured the story that he'd been assaulted by Shade and wanted the police to look into it. And I think he went to the state police as well as the local police.
And then it really put Dave in a bad situation because They went down to question Dave, and he'd said, no, that's not true. Dan was here for about 10 minutes and left.
When they found out what had occurred, they just kind of sat on it for a while. There was no criminal activity on the part of Shade, who wasn't even there, and none on the part of David Schultz. But DuPont began to bear hostility towards David, feeling that he betrayed him, and the relationship with David began to deteriorate right at that point.
It was so strange and too much weirdness. There's just no reason to live in an environment like that. And we had a little conflict over it even. I'm sorry, but I'm drawing the line in the sand. We're gonna leave. And then Dave started saying, well, we'll move to California as soon as the Olympics are over.
We were 6 months away from the Olympic trials, and Dave, he was like 37, I think. So for him, this is his last chance to be on an Olympic team and win another gold medal.
A lot of us put a blind eye to any dangers because we were pursuing our dream, you know, and it was more or less a game of, you know, John being paranoid and us helping him, and, you know, so.
John loved Dave. He loved Dave, and then Dave also became like his demon that was after him. He had gotten madder and madder and madder.
Dave should have got out of there. I mean, Dave should have got out of there. Dave should have left. From tunnels to spying on him, from everything else, he came to the determination that Dave was responsible for it. And he was going to do something about it.
Storm of 96. It's still snowing. It's been snowing straight for 24 hours. And this is the scene at Foxcatcher Farms. There's Dave's window. You can't even see out of Dave's office windows. Nobody can go anywhere. Dave went to borrow the plow from the dairy people.
Mommy, put this on camera.
What do you think of this snowstorm, Danny?
It's great. It's the biggest in Pennsylvania. It is so deep. Look at my feet.
Dave was in the gym that morning, came into my office. He had kids, K-I-D-S, written on his forehead. And I said, kids? Why'd you write kids on your forehead, David Marker? He's like, oh, that's to remind me I have to pick the kids up at school. And I said, Dave, you don't seem like the kind of guy that's gonna be looking in the mirror a whole lot, so why would you write it there? So he said, that's why I wrote it here, too. And he had it written in his hand, kids. So that's the last thing he said to me.
Come on in, the heat's getting out.
We need lights.
Heat's getting out.
I got there, went immediately in to see John. He says, we've had a storm on the property. He says, there's a lot of trees down and some damage to the fences and so forth. He says, let me take you around and show you. And he comes out with a camera and a pistol. Which was a little unusual. So we're driving around, and he's showing me what trees fell and so forth. We go to the right, to the back side of the property where Dave's house was.
We were having lunch in the house, and we heard a car pull up. So Dave kind of walked over here, and he said, it's John. So John pulled his car up right about here.
As Dave walks up, John picks the pistol up and immediately swings it out the window and shoots Dave.
You go sit with him. Police, fire, and ambulance, 97. 3909 Goshen Road. A man's been shot. Okay, was it accidental or did somebody do it on purpose? Somebody did it on purpose. You get out of here right now. Been shot many times. Okay, ma'am, you have to give me the information I need. Is the person that shot him still there? John DuPont. John DuPont shot him? Yes. Okay, well, where is John DuPont at? He's gone. He just drove off in a car. Oh, God, please hurry. Okay, ma'am, they're on the way, okay?
And so I just remember rolling him over, and he was doing this thing that he used to do when he was training real hard. He was going, like trying to concentrate, like trying to keep himself alive. And all of a sudden, he just stopped breathing. And I said, I love you, and I gave him a kiss on the forehead. And he died. He died right then.
My first reaction was, I said, John, what are you doing? As I got out of the seatbelt and proceeded to get out of the car, he threw the car in reverse and fled. He had gone back to the house and said, police will be coming. Don't let them in.
The SWAT team assembled here initially, and we gave them a briefing of what had occurred. We knew that he had a variety of weapons, a lot of handguns, rifles. We knew that one end of the mansion was a combination library safe room, and that had a vault door, and we knew that that could be used to hold up ends, so to speak.
I guess the news spread fast. I think John shot somebody. They're saying it might be Dave.
Okay, so they were messing around, and the gun might have fell and hit Dave, and he's going to the hospital.
Бързо, отколкото беше да се прибера и да видя и само се молех дано да оживее Дейв. Това беше.
I was just briefed at the command center. Negotiations are ongoing. Situation is status quo. They have made contact with Mr. DuPont.
Hello?
It's DuPont, sir.
What do you want?
Basically, to resolve the situation.
As always, it's under siege here, and the thing is, I want to get the thing resolved and get the lights off the lawn here and a few other things that are annoying me. They're the only property here, and they're going to get out of here.
Why not stay on the line? We'll try to resolve this.
Goodbye.
Mr. DuPont?
A bizarre story has been unfolding for hours in a wealthy Pennsylvania suburb. It involves a violent murder and a heavily armed standoff with police. It also involves the heir to a huge fortune, a DuPont, who has turned his estate into a massive fortress.
We found out it was Dave.
We went in, emergency room, was like, where's Dave Schultz? And she's like, he's gone. I'm like, well, where'd they take him? And she's like, no, he's gone. And nobody knew nobody said anything. We just couldn't, just shocked, couldn't, speechless.
After I left the hospital, they had to take me straight to the police station where I had to start giving a statement about what happened. All I could think about is I want to get home to my kids because they didn't know yet.
My mom got home and brought me and my sister upstairs, and all the other adults brought everyone to the basement.
She sat us down on this bed, and she just, took some breaths, and she said, today, John DuPont pulled up to the house and shot a gun and killed your father.
And then we just sat in the basement and cried for, felt like hours.
We intend to wait as long as it takes to resolve this problem without anyone else being injured.
As the night went on, and then it went into Saturday, and then into Sunday, it was kind of unprecedented that a SWAT situation would go this long.
Last evening at approximately 9 o'clock, 9 p.m., negotiations with Mr. DuPont continued. The phone call with Mr. DuPont was extremely cordial and positive, and that was the last contact with Mr. DuPont. Mr. DuPont chose to go to bed at that particular time, and all negotiations or contacts with Mr. DuPont ended at 9 o'clock last night.